Good evening, cigar lovers. It's Tam here again, and welcome to another review from Cigarsindia.in, India's largest and most trusted online retailer of cigars. And today, the lads at Cigarsindia.in have asked me to review the Piedra Nacional. So it's going to be an interesting review. We've reviewed some really expensive cigars. We've reviewed some middling cigars, and this you could say is more for the economically conscious individual who would like to try cigars. This is, as I said, one of the more cost-effective cigars, and you could say it's on par with, say, Guantanamera in terms of pricing, Guantanamera, and also Flor de Cano and Quintero. One which may be slightly higher than that would be the Fonseca, but they all fit in this price-conscious range of cigars. The price itself for this interesting size, which is a 42 by 5¼ inches, is about 250 rupees, I believe. This is an interesting cigar, certainly for me, because I always view this as a test or a benchmark of how much someone is prepared to smoke a Cuban cigar, how much they are willing when they have nothing else, whether you're short of cash, whether you have a lack of opportunity. If you're given one of these, if you'd smoke it. And for me, personally, a true cigar smoker would not turn their nose up at this cigar. Yes, it has some drawbacks. Yes, it has some advantages, which I'll go on about as we go through the smoke, but it's a cigar which is not to be ignored simply because of the price point, which I think is actually one of its strongest features, but it has a lot more to offer than that. So I'll give a breakdown and a history of the cigar in a short while, but just looking at it and giving an idea or a description of the cigar before we actually smoke it, I could say it's a rustic smoke. It's what they call a country-grown cigar, and it's meant for the local market, Cuban market. And in fact, there were apocryphal stories around the 1990s that the cigar actually didn't come with a band, and they just added it subsequently, and they were meant for the local Cuban consumption. So the construction is a bit rough around the edges, but acceptable nonetheless. Color is nice. In terms of aroma and profile, yeah, it smells a bit aged. The construction is reasonable, and there's nothing really more you could say about that at this stage. So I'll just cut it and see what it's like on a pre-light draw. The tobacco is not bad. It's been looked after well. It's okay. I can't say it's got a fantastic age, or they haven't matured it for an exceptionally long time, but it's okay. I'm not picking up any heavy kind of characters or any noticeable traits from the draw. Maybe just slightly a bit green, but that's about it. The light. Am I picking up any unique characters from the aroma of the smoke? Not really. It does come out as Cuban though. You can't mistake it for, say, Dominican or Nicaraguan or Honduran. It does smell Cuban. So that's one character I appreciate and I look for, although it's got nothing standing out in that aroma of the smoke. It's quite pungent actually. There is that green quality, that greeny, grassy quality coming through. And there's certainly that tobacco, strong, um, almost overpowering character of tobacco coming through. The draw is good. What I found with these cigars is, I think when they're rolled, and I'll let this settle in for some time. At the moment, as I said, I'm just picking up a lot of vegetal flavors and characters in the cigar. There are hints of what you'd expect with a Cuban cigar. There are tiny hints of leather and bean, cocoa bean. It's not peppery. There's not much spice actually in this either, which is good. It just needs some time to develop, so I'll let that settle in. It's lost some of that grassy green quality, and it's actually, I get some coffee beans and toasted tobacco coming out. So that's kind of pleasant, it's a good indication. I'll just let it settle some more. So how is the Jose El Piedra as a brand? Well, from 1996 onwards and prior to 2002 when Guantanamera was launched, the Jose El Piedra was one of the only brands which actually used tobacco grown outside of the Pinar del Rio range. So now for this particular vitola of cigar, they actually use a combination of tobacco from the Pinar del Rio and also the Remedios plantations. In terms of flavor at the moment, it is quite bitter. There's certainly a lot of tannic elements coming through, especially when it's new. And other commentators have also said that it tends to have that same kind of quality, even if you age it, for example, for about 5 years or more, in fact. Possibly if you give it about 10 to 15 years, there may be some other hidden depths and nuances which actually come from the cigar. But this is one of the primary characteristics, that it can be a bit bitter and it can be quite tannic in its taste profile. Aroma-wise, it's actually, you could say it's a good Cuban smoke. There is also a lot of tobacco, toasted tobacco flavors and aromas coming out of this smoke. I think this is why a number of commentators and critics have always said that this cigar is really not for a novice smoker, even though it's very reasonably priced. And as a novice or a new smoker, you want to get something very, very cost effective so that you could just test the waters out and see if you actually like it. But this is not very representative of that, because if you want the experience to be enjoyable, this certainly wouldn't be the case with this particular cigar. Typically, the largest consumers of this, and why it's also called a country-grown cigar, is that it was primarily meant for the Cuban market, for the locals in Cuba, for the rollers, for the producers of the cigars. They gave these cigars to them to smoke because it was cost effective. They didn't want to use the premium tobaccos and the premium rollers to actually produce fantastic cigars where they would be making a loss. So typically these cigars go for the Cuban market as country-grown cigars, usually without the band, or they are exported to Spain, where they're very incredibly popular, simply because they do have a very strong taste, and a more seasoned or intermediate smoker would appreciate the qualities of this. And this is what I mentioned at the very start of this review, saying, well, this is a good test of a true Havana smoker, because if you imagine you're on a desert island, or you're in a place where you want a good Cuban cigar, irrespective of the price, irrespective of a number of other things, you want that aroma, you want that, what you would consider as a Cuban cigar, this certainly has that. And for me personally, I would always say, and I said this in a review previously, that you want to get into a crowd of seasoned cigar smokers, you just say, oh yeah, I smoke a Bartegas D4, you get immediate acceptance. I think I would have to review that up now and say, question the person and say, would you smoke a Jose L. Piedra cigar? Because there is nothing wrong with it. It's harsh, it's rough around the edges, and it is meant for the Cuban market or Spanish market, but it is still a Cuban cigar nonetheless. So it has all those qualities that you were looking for in a Cuban cigar. It has that aroma of it. It's unmistakably Cuban. It has certain nuances of taste which are certainly Cuban. The only drawback is that in terms of some of the other flavors, the tannic and the bitter qualities, also that green kind of vegetal quality, there is a preponderance of that in the cigar which may impair the flavor and would consequently put you off the cigar, which is why a seasoned or an intermediate smoker would forego those kind of considerations, or would factor those considerations in and still enjoy the cigar nonetheless. Whereas a novice smoker may not enjoy it as much because they'll think, oh my god, this is a bitter, tannic, very unpleasant kind of cigar, which it is not. It's just a very robust smoke which needs to be approached in the right way. So the cigar's actually gone about halfway through, and I really wouldn't want to go through too much more or go into another segment because, one, I've smoked a hell of a lot of these cigars, and you won't find very much variation. In terms of, it does have its qualities, it has its good points, it has its bad points. Yes, as I said, it's a country cigar meant for the Cuban market, smoked predominantly in Spain. Apparently, of course this was before they banned it, but during bullfights, I think they still do it in Mexico though. But this was the equivalent to a cigarette perhaps for the Cuban and the Spanish smokers. So it is harsh, it can be harsh, and it certainly does put chest hairs on you if you're a man. It's a very robust cigar. It's quite potent, it's got a lot of strength, a lot of tobacco, it's got some of the green qualities coming through. It is tannic and it can be bitter. But underneath all of that, and this is why I would always go back to it, and this is a true test, according to me, of a die-hard Cuban cigar smoker, is that they would still be willing and happy to smoke this cigar. First positive, the price point on this is just an amazing price. How could you get a cigar for 250 rupees, which is that size? And which, although not totally hecho a mano, which is totally man-made or handmade, it's actually partially handmade. The only thing that they've changed is the automation process where they bunch the leaves together, but everything else is handmade. It's a good size. It's and also it has that undeniable Cuban quality to it. The aroma is Cuban. Some of the subtle nuances in the cigar in terms of the flavor are Cuban. Okay, it has those harsh points, but then I can forgive those, bearing in mind the price of this cigar. There are far more expensive cigars which are non-Cuban, and actually some which are actually Cuban, which I think do pale in comparison when compared to this cigar. So for those qualities alone, I would say this is a very good smoke, but certainly more for an intermediate smoker or for the seasoned smoker, because they know you would know what you're actually getting into with this cigar. If you want to experiment and you're new to cigars, then please do give it a try, but then give it a lot of leeway. Understand that this is meant for a certain type of cigar smoker. It's meant to be cost effective, but it's meant to have those certain generic cigar, Cuban cigar characteristics. So I just leave it at that. In terms of strength, out of 5, I give it about a 4. It's that strong. So again, these are the things that you'd have to put into consideration, and bearing in mind the price, what I would give for this cigar, I'd say about 8.5 out of 10, 8.5 to 9 out of 10. Yes, for something which people would normally say is, oh, it's a very poor cigar, it's not. If you actually change the paradigm and look at it differently, you would appreciate the cigar for what it is. And it is a good smoke in that respect. Hope you like the review. Hope to see you again soon. If you have any comments or criticisms, please do put them on the YouTube channel. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channel and like us on Facebook or Twitter. And the gentlemen at Cigarsindia.in also have their details on the YouTube and Facebook page. So please do give them a call and get in contact if you want to have a better idea and understanding about the cigars in general, from the choice of cigars, how to pair it, and also non-Cuban cigars. Information will be freely flowing from the gentleman. So thank you once again for your time, and hope to see you again soon.